Hello and welcome to another episode of Off the Record with Lehigh Valley with Love. I'm George Wacker, joined by my co-host, Northampton County Commissioner Jeff Warren. Today, we're continuing our conversation on one of the most pressing issues in the Lehigh Valley and across Pennsylvania and across the nation, to be honest, housing. The topic of homelessness and affordable housing has been front and center in the news lately and is something that impacts families, communities, and the future of our region. This is the second episode of our housing series, and we're excited to welcome two people who are leading important work in this space. Joining us are Gina Loiacono, Director of Community Engagement and Grants at Habitat for Humanity of the Lehigh Valley, and Marc Rittle, Executive Director at New Bethany. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Absolutely.
Great to have you on here.
Great to be here.
We're super excited. Thanks for having us.
Before we begin, really quickly, I want to thank our sponsors who allow us to do all of this. Molly's Irish Grill and Sports Pub, Wind Creek Event Center, Michael Bernardin with Remax Realty, WDIY 88.1 FM, and our friends at Banco Beverage Company. Go Birds. And let's start with Marc. Marc, can you tell us a little bit about New Bethany and what its mission is for the Lehigh Valley?
Yeah, I'm so glad you're covering issues like this as well. It's hugely important, as you said, across the nation. My name is Marc Rittle. I am the Executive Director for New Bethany. We were kind of born on the south side of Bethlehem here, right on the other side of the Hill-to-Hill Bridge, originally to help homeless steelworkers in the late 70s and really the entire decade of the 80s. And that has morphed into what is today a soup kitchen and food pantry where over 100 people kind of come through our doors every day. On top of, we have between 65 and 70 units of housing. And we do transitional, supportive, permanent housing, almost any type of housing there is, except for emergency overnight, which is covered by Bethlehem Emergency Shelter and across the street.
Great, thank you. And Gina, we all know Habitat for Humanity. If you could tell us a little bit about Habitat Lehigh Valley.
Absolutely. So Habitat Lehigh Valley, we are one of 1,500 United States affiliates associated with Habitat for Humanity International. Here in Bethlehem, we were founded in 1989. We just dedicated our 142nd home last night. So we're super excited about that.
Great.
And it's a wonderful organization that if I could sum it up, probably 4 key points. We believe in building homes, communities, and hope, and strength, stability, and self-reliance through shelter. And we 100% believe that everyone deserves a decent place to live. And we're going to provide that hand up for them, not a handout, because no child should ever wonder where to lay their head at night.
Absolutely. And
the
Jeff,
work you do,
welcome to the program, of course.
Yes, absolutely, buddy. Yeah, I love doing these podcasts, the Off the Record podcast with you, George, when we're talking about community issues that matter so much to working folks and whether it's senior citizens as well, children as well. Mm-hmm. This Off the Record podcast that we've been doing, I think, has really been eye-opening for so many folks within our Lehigh Valley community and beyond. And Gina, to really dive into what you have been seeing from a housing perspective. Look, Habitat for Humanity does an amazing job of helping people realizing that dream of home ownership within our communities. 140 homes have been built here in the Lehigh Valley over the years, as you just mentioned. But, we know this dream in general is so very much difficult for people to achieve these days. It's an ongoing theme for a lot of folks, and a lot of folks are looking for that hope that you're talking about. What have you all at Habitat been really seeing in terms of these challenges?
Well, I think that the most pressing challenge, and I know that Habitat isn't the exception, it's affecting every nonprofit in the Lehigh Valley across the country, particularly those associated with affordable housing. Just the state of the world today, and regardless of what side of the aisle you're on, the facts are the facts.
Yeah,
programs are being cut, funding is being cut, and when it starts at a federal level and then it trickles all the way down to your local governments, at the end of the day, what's there to support these nonprofits, to support these huge initiatives? When you look at something like affordable housing and all of the roadblocks that are there, They're not new. The affordable housing roadblocks go all the way back to the Fair Housing Act of 1968, which was part of the Civil Rights Act, when there were such inherent and, prejudice systems already in place that were preventing certain communities from accessing affordable housing. And as we've moved, hopefully, past that, it's still not perfect. In fact, it's still quite flawed that so many marginalized and often, I think, intentionally exploited communities are not able to gain that access to affordable housing because of, terrible things like redlining. As much as it's illegal, redlining is still happening. And it's so unfortunate that we have families they're trying so hard to achieve the dream of home ownership. They want to provide for their family. But when we look at things like, housing and urban development, in 2025, the average 1 to 2 bedroom apartment in the Lehigh Valley, so Lehigh and Northampton counties in particular, average being the key word. This is not like luxury. It's not a ton of amenities. There's no swimming pool. But an average 1 to 2 bedroom apartment was $1,500 a month. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah,
it's
ridiculous.
Not sustainable. And then minimum wage not changing. You have, statistically, when you do it, and I'm no mathematician, I used to teach English. But like when you look at the math, that requires a 2-parent household to each of them work at least 2 full-time minimum wage jobs. Who can do that? There's only 24 hours in a day. It's not sustainable. It's not conducive to a quality, safe environment in the home. And then they can't access things like educational achievement, quality health care, food security. So it really snowballs when you think about it, because then you look to the future and 2026, the projections aren't really much better from HUD. No. It's going to go up another like $136 for 1 to 2 bedrooms. Our families need more than that. Our low to moderate income families deserve more. They need more. And we can't fight these battles that our underserved communities are battling alone. It has to be state level, federal level, community level, and like
we live in the richest country in the world, and the fact that this situation is at the forefront of our public agenda is absolutely mind-boggling to me. But George, I know you wanted to get into some discussion points here with Marc, so buddy, take it away.
Yeah, I'm a yapper. Right. I'm sorry.
No, not at all.
It was great. You came to the right place.
That's good yapping. That's good stuff you've got. I mean, it's all true.
Right. Marc, New Bethany has a transitional housing program where the goal is to find permanent housing for families. And I would imagine that it's probably busting at the seams with the lack of true, reasonable, affording housing that we just heard about from Gina. Can you talk a little bit about this program and how it has helped in the grand scheme of things in the Lehigh Valley?
Yeah, and also what I'll do is I'm just going to talk a little bit about how we had what we called a permanent housing program, and we changed it to like a longer term transitional program as well, just to get more people through. But yeah, for a number of years, probably a number of decades, we've had a transitional housing program. We can take about a dozen families at a time. And this is a program that helps families with children. So this is the only program that we have at New Bethany. Most of what we do deals with adults, especially single adults, or, families can come into our soup kitchen, for example, but in terms of housing, it starts with the homeless child. And so we get referrals from children and youth. So you do have to call Childline in either Northampton County or Lehigh County if you want to get into the program. Now, a lot of people don't want to do that because they're fearful for what a county caseworker might do. And if that's ever the true for someone, they can always call us. We can help them navigate the system a little bit, but really they have to be the ones who call Childline. And then so we will get parents, guardians, sometimes brand new guardians who just need to, I'm taking care of my nephew now, and I was living with my mom before, and I just need a place for a few months. Like, we're that type of short-term transitional shelter. Sometimes the family's just homeless, and that's the only issue, and then we'll take you for a few months as well. But they are 100% county referrals. And so you're with us for 3 months. Yeah, you're with us for a few months, and then you make goals to get housing and whatever it takes to support you in housing, like childcare, transportation, and jobs.
And at the minimum, if people do, like you had said, they can call a child line, but they can still contact New Bethany directly if they have questions.
Always call, and if you call us, we'll walk you through it. What we usually do is kind of like dispel some of the myths and rumors about child line, that sort of thing. It really just is like if you're homeless. I do want to mention one important thing about our program. We will take men who have custody of children, and that's an unusual thing in the country and even in our region.
There's only one. Is.
Yeah. So we'll take any construct of the family. We've had families with transgender parents. We've had families, same-sex parents. We've had single fathers. We've had single mothers. And I think that's just really, really important.
That's amazing. Such important work.
And then moving on to Gina, kind of the same token. Can you walk us through a process of a family who wants to become a homeowner through Habitat?
Absolutely. So every affiliate is a little bit different, but what we do is we take, that Habitat International model and we apply it at the local level. So a prospective Habitat homeowner for the Lehigh Valley needs to work or live in the Lehigh Valley for at least 1 year. They need to be in imminent need of affordable housing. They have to have a credit score of at least 600. They have to be able to save $2,000 for closing costs. Then we look at their income debt ratio based on the sliding scale provided by Housing and Urban Development. They need to commit 250 sweat equity hours per adult in the home on the deed. So they're working hard for these homes. It's definitely not, a freebie housing program. If it were, I'd be the first in line. They also have to do several background checks, several credit checks. They have to take financial literacy courses as well as some first-time homeowner courses. Both of those are done with Community Action Lehigh Valley. So we love to partner with other nonprofits to make sure that we are giving them the best possible resources. And then at the end of the day, they have to be able to pay that low-cost 0% interest mortgage as well as their insurance and taxes. Those are probably like the key highlights. And it's a rigorous process. The application a stack this big, and approval is not guaranteed. And we always have to also make sure that, the land is available, which is becoming harder and harder.
Right. That's a whole other conversation, right?
Yeah, we could do a whole other hour on that.
Right.
And then to make sure that the housing stock is available and where the communities can support for us to continue building.
But that really is another conversation that I would love to have on this podcast another time. I mean, George and I, we were doing a podcast a little while ago on warehouses, talking about open space, farmland preservation, but just like the warehouse issue. And inevitably the foundation of that conversation was land. It really is at the end of the day, land. But as we're moving forward with the conversation here, Marc, on part 1 of our housing podcast series, George and I were discussing with our guests at the time the difference between attainable housing and affordable housing, because they're two very different things. So as it pertains to the nonprofit world and what you see every day and with your interactions with folks at New Bethany, for folks needing to find housing for themselves and their families, what does that difference between attainable housing and affordable housing really mean to you as we're navigating these challenging waters?
Yeah. And I'll say that for me to be able to answer your question, I use the terms affordable and then even low income. And to me, that's two very different things. Like something's affordable, every single family has a different price point for what affordable means. If you're going to go by a definition, affordable is, and I disagree with the formula, but affordable technically is you are spending 1/3 of your income on housing. So whatever your income is, that's what determines it. So when you look at things like Section 8 housing or subsidized housing through a housing authority, you do have to meet an income threshold, but then what you pay for rent is going to be different family by family, because what was affordable to you, if you don't have any income, you actually get, well, not free rent because you're still doing things with the authority and all of those things, but it could be very different. Now, low income housing is something that New Bethany really strives for in most of our units. We have a building with 20 units in Copley next to the mall. We have 14 units here on the south side as well. And we're starting to get some landlord partners who want us to manage their properties for them and find tenants and put them in there. And for all of those properties, they are rentals. It's not county-based or anything like that, or housing authority-based. And what we charge is what's called fair market rent. And fair market rent is when you take the average rent. We only do rentals, so we don't do home ownerships.
Right.
When you're ready for home ownership, we pass you on to community action and habitat, which is kind of how the pipeline works. It's kind of nice. But 40% of the average rental rate in a region is what is considered fair market rent. So you're paying less than half. And even less than half is kind of pricey for some people. And honestly, even for us, like that 1,500 number, was that for a 1-bedroom you said?
1 to 2 bedroom. Typically, when we look at that, when we make our sliding scale, we focus on 2-bedroom because of family need.
Correct. So if you take half of that and then as a single person, you can still get upwards of $1,000 for a 1-bedroom apartment, however many people are trying to live in that place. But anyway, that's where we start, because we're also a landlord and there has to be money to pay for the bills and all of those things. Right. So if you don't have a Section 8 voucher, we look at that 40% number. So that to me is the difference. And I would strive for every apartment building, to me, should be affordable. There shouldn't be a single person who can't afford something. Yep. And then on top of that, I would ask any developer out there or any landlord or property owner, if you own multiple properties, let's just say 40% as a good number, but take some percentage of your units and make them also available to low-income families. And that's just lowering the price of your rent to that 40% number.
It's a great idea. It really is a great idea. And perhaps some public policy can be done in the future with regard to changing this when we look at
what's the opposite of a slumlord? You're doing the opposite of that, being a conscientious landlord, and it's something that you should be doing. It's unfortunate that we need laws in place to make people sometimes act that way.
So often we see with rentals, outside of the scope of organizations like New Bethany, but it's going to be affordable. It's available for low income families. You get this voucher, yada, yada, yada. And it's got a 5-year affordability period. Well, people need to live places longer than 5 years, pals,
Right.
And then, you can carve it in granite that at, 4 years, 12 months, 11 months and 30 days, that rent is going right through the roof again.
Yeah. Right. You had a Band-Aid for 5 years or 10 years or whatever. So now where's the permanency and the sustainability? And I think, Marc, you're seeing that probably, time and time again, where these programs, you're ready to go out in the world and you're going to rent an apartment, but then they're probably back with you, or they're back in a situation because it's just not doable at these rates.
Yeah, no, it's really true. We've seen people, because all of our residents are literally homeless before they come into us. And sometimes you do see people slip back out. And I will also say, though, it's not just the price for a lot of landlords. It is the cost, because you'll hear property owners say, like, well, the costs are the cost and we have to charge what we have to charge. And otherwise, how am I going to make money? Yeah. But when I've seen people start to say, like, well, what if I did charge less? Then you're also battling with a stigma that's associated with low-income families and low-income individuals, especially. And that's where I think New Bethany can come in and sort of assuage the nerves of a property owner to say, look, it's not just make it affordable for the family. It's also that, and this is true in all of our units, we call it supportive housing. You have a caseworker, or a social worker, you have someone who's working with you if there are any barriers. So if like I kind of said before, if you need transportation, we can help you with that. If you need childcare, sometimes it's addiction counseling. Sometimes it's just behavioral health resources, finding a primary care physician. Like sometimes it's just those types of things. We have the partners and we have the staff expertise. So yes, you're paying rent, but also we can guarantee no one's going to come in, trash your apartment, stop paying rent. Like we know how to match people to the right housing unit. And I think sometimes there's a fear that, this is happening in Jordan Creek right now, honestly, where you have the landlords right next to the creek saying, like, people need housing. but I'm not going to house them. And so when you see that fear in place, it makes it really hard. But there are organizations, and New Bethany is definitely one of them, that can partner with the landlord and make sure that people are, staying whatever you want, whatever you think that people are going to do, that they're going to stay on the level.
If I'm a landlord, I can contact New Bethany for information about, working with you on my property. That's something I didn't know that. So that's interesting.
Yeah. And this is new for us. We have a team of 5 people. We own 10 buildings, first of all. So we're no stranger to property management. We have 65 rental units in our supportive housing program. And so we have a team of 5 people. We actually have stopped contracting with contractors to do some of our building, and we have been doing our own renovation of our own units. Wow. So if a toilet breaks, we can definitely do that. And that's an expertise that we've been building over the last 5 years. So yes, we're able to be a property manager.
That's wonderful.
That's awesome.
I think Marc.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry. Marc mentioned such a key point, the stigma around affordable and attainable housing. And that is a battle I think all of our housing nonprofits face every day. Like, oh, we're going to build these communities. We're going to build these rental units in this neighborhood. And then the neighborhood goes up in arms. Like, oh, it's Section 8 or it's this. Just stop that. That's terrible. You
must see so much of that, Gina, because you're trying to build one house or a couple houses in a neighborhood.
Crazy. These are frontline workers. These are your neighbors. They are your children's teachers. They are nurses and EMTs. Like, it's horrible that, we say we're advanced as a society, but it's absolutely primitive and ridiculous that these systems are preventing people from being accepted into a community when they want to be part of it. They want to increase the tax, base. They want to do all these good things as contributing members of a community and society. And, these inherent prejudices are creating
they need the opportunity.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I will also mention, I don't know if you had more questions, but we're just going to talk.
No, keep going.
All right. I think one thing people don't realize too is that the stigma comes from the worst of the worst, right? Because stigmas come from real life examples. So maybe you see an encampment and you witness a practice of some kind, say, just make up a stigma, say that it's drug use or something like that. Then you associate that with any single person. What people don't realize is that right now at this moment, yes, there are tents on the river, and there are also people about to be evicted who are going to need to find some place. They won't have enough time to get a tent and start living on the river, but they're homeless and they're about to be homeless. And there are also a lot of people who live in their cars. And so what we're able to do is there are so many people there are multiple waiting lists across the Lehigh Valley. And so what organizations and it's not just New Bethany, but what we're able to do is identify who is appropriate for what place. So if it's in a particular neighborhood and we've been working with a family for the last year, okay, you know what? We're going to call you a graduate now. You're ready. Habitat for Humanity has all sorts of financial literacy courses. You mentioned all of those things. So you don't just move from the stereotype that you saw one day that you were jogging to this is who's living next door to me. There are hundreds of families, unfortunately. There's hundreds of families, and everybody's at a different place along the continuum. So we wouldn't place someone who wasn't ready for a certain type of housing.
I think that's a really good point.
And to break that stigma is going to take so much time because it took so much time to get here. The evolution of the stigma. And unfortunately, you do have, and I hesitate to say, but it's reality, you have certain political entities for decades and decades creating those stigmas. So we need to combat that. We really do in the future. And how to do that is certainly a discussion for another time. And I know that we wanted to talk more about, Restore as well. Habitat. George, do you want to get into that?
Well, it's great because, honestly, we could talk for hours about this stuff. And it is difficult to just say, hey, we're going to try to condense it into this. Our hope is that when you listen to this podcast, you can visit the websites for New Bethany or Habitat, Lehigh Valley, and learn more about them and go down that path. And one of those things you should learn about is Habitat for Humanity's Restore, which is in Hellertown. It's a really interesting concept. Gina, can you tell us about it and tell us about how people can, go
Absolutely.
there?
I love our restores. They are so much fun. We have a location in both Whitehall and Hellertown. Our Hellertown one is newer. We're coming up on the year anniversary of its opening. So our restores sell new and gently used item at a fraction of the retail price, we like to say. And all of the funds that are accrued from sales then go immediately back into our program to build and repair more homes. So every donation you make to the restore of something from your home, that becomes a sellable item. That becomes money that goes into our program. Every, purchase you make, whether you're buying building supplies or a sofa or tools or, we like to say from teacups to toilets at the restores. Whether you're buying a teacup or a toilet, you're providing those funds that then increase what we're able to do in our programs. So we're located on Grape Street in Whitehall in the old Circuit City building for anyone who's been around that long.
Right. Yes.
And then in Hellertown, we're located at the old Neighbors location. We purchased that a little less than a year ago, and it's thriving, it's growing, and it's a DIYer and a treasure hunter's paradise. Also contractors, landlords. So Marc, you guys need stuff, come over to the restore. We'll help you out.
We were there last weekend, I have to say.
We love that. We love that. So our restores are great places. And we also get new product. We have donations from Lowe's and Target, Safavia Furniture and Allen and Roth Lighting and all sorts of great stuff. So
people can donate stuff too, right?
Yes.
I can donate.
Yeah. Our website, habitatlv.org, has a huge list of what is accepted and what's not. So make sure you visit our restores, visit our website, and just go shopping. We love that.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, I guess to close out the conversation here, and Marc, I wanted to, and I know this is going to be a very general type of question for you because, at the end of the day, I'm wondering where the support really needs to come from in terms of get the attainable and affordable housing that we were talking about before, because much of this comes down to having the will to do something about this housing market. It comes down to the old phrase, where there's a will, there's a way. What are some actions right at the top of your list that can be done to really help folks afford a home in this economy? What are your thoughts?
The more and more I look at it, and this is like, yes, there's all sorts of policy things you could say, especially federal, state, local, but truly what I have been realizing is how little, especially in a city like Bethlehem is a good example. Like, we're kind of locked in between all of these other municipalities. And so there is so much more power in the private sector than there is in the public sector. And it's really like you see buildings going up everywhere and the city isn't building them. And sometimes there's a requirement to have low income, but you can also buy out of that requirement. So I would actually say, like, it needs to come from the private sector. Yes, donate to organizations, but also as you're building, keep the community in mind. And I think that's the most important thing. And if that isn't happening, then we won't get out of this. It truly is. This is a capitalist society. So the private sector is driving everything. Yes, we have public sectors, but more and more and more, if an individual person or shop or company owns something and you're doing housing, like, you can make money and also help, middle class and also low income people.
I got to tell you, I love doing our Off the Record podcast here because we're able to talk to amazing folks like you, Marc, like you, Gina. Really, you are doing such amazing work within our Lehigh Valley communities. And it's a privilege to be able to talk to you on the Lehigh Valley with Love platform here. So, George, I don't know if you want to end things here. And we had a great conversation here, man.
Thank you again. Seriously, it's such this is such an important issue. Even I was watching the Bethlehem City Council meeting the other evening, and when there were, people from the homeless camp who were coming up and speaking and telling their truths. That's a powerful moment. These are real people in our community, and it's something where it tells us about our community when we look at the most vulnerable and we act on that. And I know that you guys are leading the charge in this. And, you know, it's inspirational to myself. It's inspirational to many, many people. So I just want to say thank you for not only coming on the podcast, but also for doing everything that you do every day. So
it's a privilege. This was great fun. And to be able to, you know, even dip our toes in that advocacy and spreading awareness, it's a gift.
We appreciate you.
Thank you so
and
much.
for everybody listening, we have all the links in the show notes. So if you want to pop in there, if not, you can just search New Bethany or Habitat Lehigh Valley, and you're going to find a lot of resources available for you. Jeff, a pleasure as always. Thank you.
Always
Marc
great,
and Gina.
friend.
Yes, thank you. Good luck with your election. Good luck.
A big thank you to our sponsors, Michael Bernardin with Remax Real Estate, Molly's Irish Grill and Sports Pub, Banco Beverage Company, Wind Creek Event Center, WDIY 88.1 FM. Thank you for allowing us to continue to bring these episodes to you.